Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44. So we got about maybe about an hour before Game One of the second round series between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets. I've broken down this series quite a bit in a video that was about 25 minutes long, so you guys can go ahead and check out my Western Conference predictions um, video to really see how I see this series going from a specific standpoint, little nuances, things like that. Um, right now, I just want to kind of touch in on Game 1 and what I expect to see from that particular game. Um, so, with the Rockets, it's hard to really gauge what to expect because they are so unique of a basketball team in terms of how they're constructed. Um, but for me, just looking at what they provide, the only real concern I have as a Laker fan is that we will be cold from behind the three. We're going to see lots of shots go up on their end, and if we're not able to match that, or if we try to match that, to be more specific about the thought, if we try to outshoot them, we can get outdueled. We are not on their level in terms of shooting the basketball, not by any stretch of the imagination. I like that we have guys that are capable of making shots. It's wonderful that our best players are capable of hitting threes. So that helps. You would imagine if things get out of hand and you need a three, we can get one or two, but I don't want to fall in love with trying to take 25 and 30 3-point shots just because they're jacking them up every single time down the floor, and maybe we find ourselves behind because they're hitting shots. That's my concern. You can turn a 8-point deficit into an 18 to 25-point deficit when you're missing threes and they're making them. We need to try to do our very best to keep them out of rhythm. And the best way, in my opinion, to do that, besides just playing great perimeter defense, is to be as active as you can on the other end of the floor, running people off of picks, putting yourself in positions to make easy baskets, and of course getting to the line every time you get a chance. That's how you break a shooter's rhythm. That's how you stop a team's momentum. You practice smart and strategic timeout calling. I know that sounds kind of silly, but when you really understand the game of basketball and you really have it in your head that you want to break the rhythm of a team, using your timeouts wisely is a good strategy. In other words, call a timeout if they hit 2 in a row. Period. That's what you do. You don't want them to get confident from behind the 3-point arc. You want to play the 3-point arc very, very well. You don't want to try to be a shot blocker. Gosh, this has to be said. I hope everybody's hearing me. Basketball enthusiasts, people who are learning the game, etc. You don't have to block jump shots. Because if you're playing the percentages, you're more than likely to get called for the foul than you are to block the shot. It's a poor percentage play, in my opinion, and it's something that doesn't get taught enough. I think, ironically, James Harden maybe had the best perimeter defensive play that we've seen in these playoffs thus far in blocking Dort's shot. He showed us exactly how to do it. If you want to be a shot blocker, you're jumping to the side away from the shooter, trying to reach up to possibly connect with the shot at its apex before it's released. You do not want to jump at a guy. You don't want to run under a guy. You don't want to do anything that makes the referees call a 4-point play whistle. You don't want to have them shooting 3 free throws, and you don't at all want to foul a 3-point shooter at any point in the game. I just think that if we're sound in making sure that we do what we need to do to be smart behind the perimeter defensively, they don't have anything else to offer at all. The Rockets don't. They just simply have to shoot 3-point shots in this series. They have to make them, and that's what they're going to have. James Harden can get to the rim at ease. He's going to put us in a blender. He's going to make all of our guys look stupid, and that's just what it's going to happen. But what doesn't need to happen is the Eric Gordons and Ben McLemores and Austin Rivers of the world getting hot from behind the arc. Obviously, Covington's a guy who's going to string together threes. Don't be surprised to see him hit about 5 or 6 threes in a game in this series, because he's going to have open looks, and he's very, very confident and comfortable behind the arc, always has been. And because of Robert Covington, they are a very, very sound defensive team. And I know that also sounds crazy because they don't have size, but they play a roam type of defense that's just similar to a zone. They switch a lot, they front a lot, they swap that and go play behind big guys a lot. So they just give you a lot of different looks. They throw a lot of different double teams and things like that at you, and you gotta be a willing passer in order to really be effective against their defensive schemes. So I don't think that's going to be as much of a problem, because we don't have guards that really want to take you off the dribble and stuff like that. We have big guys that are doing that kind of stuff. So it's going to be difficult for them to guard us at all altogether. We're going to rebound. We're going to out-rebound them by astronomical amounts if we do what we're supposed to. This should be one of the more lopsided rebounding series, period. On paper, this should be extremely lopsided on the boards. That's what I want to say. If there's anything else that's going to sound disrespectful or just playing it on too thick, but you get the point. I expect this to be really, really ridiculous as it pertains to rebounding differentials. Like, we're gonna kill them on the boards every night, and it's gonna be rather easy to do. That's what I expect to see tonight. I really do. We're gonna out rebound them probably by over 20 rebounds if we're doing what we're supposed to do. I think this is a situation where, just like we saw with the Nuggets, that team had just come off a very, very difficult series, Game 7, all of that, and they had tired legs against the Clips. Didn't really have much to offer in Game 1. I think Houston's in a similar situation, but I wouldn't count on them being as sluggish as the Thunder were. As the Nuggets were, is what I'm trying to say. I don't expect them to be as sluggish as the Nuggets, because the Nuggets were coming back from 3-1, and that's not the way Houston's series was set up. It wasn't that much of a strain on them, even though it went to 7 games. They weren't fighting for their lives every game since Game 2, basically. So I think this is a less of a stress situation. Even though they had a stressful series, it went 7 games, all of that, I just don't expect them to be as worn out as Denver appeared to be in Game 1 against Clips. So expect them to come out pretty fresh. Not pretty fresh, but fresher than Denver is what I'll say. What I hope to see as a Laker fan is Russell Westbrook really cold. Russell Westbrook doesn't have an off switch. We know how he is. If you watched him his whole career like I have, you know he's going to jack up shots that he has no business taking. You know he's going to be a freight train straight down the middle if you give him an opportunity. He's going to do what he can to assure that his team gets the most out of him, just like he's always given every team he's ever played on. And I expect him to get in better shape as this series progresses. Unlike other players who have been worn out and tired, he should be pretty well rested because he's been out for the most part. So now is the time for him to start showing us and everybody else in the league that he's not going to have these issues going forward. So that's going to be interesting to see how Westbrook plays. Of course, the game is in the bubble, but I think it's just like anything else, man. You're from LA. James Harden and Russell Westbrook are LA boys. They know who they're playing against. I expect them to be wide awake for the series. That's why I don't expect that we're going to sweep them. Because I just don't. Even though everything on paper tells me that we shouldn't lose a game in this series, I just have that much respect for James Harden and Russell Westbrook as a collective. Even though I don't love them together, when you have those two players on the floor, you're going to get a win. Somebody is going out of those two players is going to will you a win. and maybe even one each. If they're both at their best, Russ can get you a game, Harden can get you a game. That's how great of players these are. But the way I'm looking at Russell Westbrook is he's just not in that type of shape. He's not in that type of conditioning. He doesn't have the type of rhythm. He's not in a good lather, so to speak. And he's probably not going to have that until probably game 6 or 7 if it goes that far. I just don't expect him to be at his best. But this is incentive for, in terms of, if you believe what I'm saying, it's incentive to try to get this series out of the way early. Because I think Russell Westbrook will get better as the series progresses. But I don't think their fit's going to be any better. I don't think they're going to get any taller, obviously. The mismatches are still going to be unbelievably lopsided our way. This has the potential to be really, really nasty. And what I mean by that is that we could annihilate them really bad. Like this is the fear that everybody was having when they were talking about the Houston Rockets trading Clint Capella and not bringing back a center. Yes, you bring back a fantastic defensive 3-and-D guy in Robert Covington that fits what you want perfectly, but you have no size in a Western Conference where you literally are looking at a Laker team with a 3-headed monster at the center position, and none of those names are LeBron James. So at this point, it's like you got to deal with 4 superhuman rebounders. Well, 3. I don't look at JaVale as a superhuman rebounder. But Dwight, obviously AD and LeBron are superhuman rebounders. And they don't have anyone over 6'8" to throw at us. Not a soul over 6'8" to throw at us. I just don't want to get ahead of myself because they do have such phenomenal talent. James Harden is a all-world MVP, first ballot Hall of Famer, and so is Russell Westbrook. Both of them are all-world, the greatest players you'll ever find, like some of the best talent you'll ever see in your life. But when you have 2 pieces that don't necessarily fit together, in James Harden and Russell Westbrook, which they don't, and then a team full of guys that don't have any size on them, it's just very difficult to foresee how anything's going to go their way. And I'm not even saying that as a Laker fan. This could be the Bucks and the Raptors. If the teams were constructed this way, I still see it just the same. You need rebounders against the Lakers. You cannot, like, I love PJ Tucker. As I was talking to one of my Laker buddies today, PJ Tucker's a guy I would love to have on the Lakers next year. If we can get him out of Houston, that would be phenomenal. He's exactly what we want. He's a guy that throws his weight around. He doesn't mind playing against bigger guys. He will take on a huge load and role, even though he's considered a role player. He'll play bigger and be bigger in big moments. He has a automatic layup-like corner 3, basically a layup for him. He's one of the best corner 3-point shooters in the game, ironically. And you just like players like that. A guy that's going to play defense and stretch the floor offensively. What team doesn't a guy like PJ Tucker fit on? Well, unfortunately, the answer is the Rockets. And it's not that he doesn't fit. That's the complete opposite way of looking at it. More so, he's asked to use his strengths and capitalize on those strengths against players who have those strengths, who happen to be stronger and taller than him. In other words, you negate all of his strengths by putting him up against guys who do the same thing he does, just bigger than him. Like you are literally asking him to take on your center position, and he's undersized as a 4, not a 5. He's an undersized 4. So that speaks to the type of toughness and moxie that a guy like this has, to where he ain't even complained one time to the media about how he hates being in this position, or how he's going to wear his body down, or how this is going to affect him going forward, and none of that. He's just like, yo, y'all want me to do that? That's what we doing. Just the consummate professional. I got a lot of respect for his game, and I hate to see the punishment that he's about to take. I mean, the memes are already going out before game 1 even starts. It's just a foregone conclusion that he's going to be asked to do way more than he's capable of doing. And that's just the bottom line. Same goes for the young fella Daniel House. Same thing. Robert Covington. Same thing. You are the bigs on the roster. None of you guys are bigger than LeBron James, R3, but you guys are the bigs on the roster. I just feel like Daryl Morey really hurt those players, particularly, by putting the team together this way. probably took years off of their careers, to be honest. They got to bang with people like Dwight and AD and try to deal with the length of JaVale McGee. And all three of those dudes run the floor. Oh, yeah, and there's a guy by the name of LeBron James, who's an all-world physical specimen of catastrophic proportions, of the likes of which we have literally never seen. His name ain't even come up yet. Oh, yeah, and there's a guy by the name of Kyle Kuzma who has a lot to prove and has a lot of energy right now and loves playing against the Rockets. It's lopsided, buddy. It's lopsided. Everything about this on paper looks lopsided. And the only reason why I'm giving them any game is because of the respect that I have for the greatness of the players that they happen to have on their roster. The reality is they probably shouldn't have won Game 7, and they probably shouldn't win a single game in this series. Take that for what it's worth. I got Lakers in 5, and I'm excited about it. Now, as I say this, even though I can't see it, there is a possibility that the Lakers come out believing all that I just said and just don't simply approach this team with the type of respect that they deserve. That is possible. The problem with banking on that is it's highly improbable based on the type of players that we have on our roster. So even if you wanted to say, okay, well, we have this lopsided matchup, maybe they can catch us. Nah, you ain't catching those guys who happen to have rings up and down the roster. Our role players have rings, buddy. Our back of the bench guys got rings. It's going to be very difficult to expect anybody on our roster to not meet the intensity necessary to match up with the Rockets, who happen to be small. I think what you're looking at really is hoping for injuries if you're the Rockets. I mean, like, really, you're hoping for injuries. Because as long as we stay big, there's really not a whole lot to say that's on paper anyway. The only thing they got for themselves is the 3. Everybody needs to get hot and stay hot the whole series. And not just hot, but like, if you're a shooter on this team, you need to make 3 threes a game. All of their shooters need to connect on 3 3-point shots a game. That's how this has to go in order for them to win, in my opinion. I just don't see it. You got Russell jacking up threes. It's just not very successful in my mind. I don't see no way that works. Now, another thing that we need to pay attention to is being pedestrian with the basketball. LeBron tends to turn the ball over a lot. Covington tends to take it from us. He's a great stealsman. Obviously, we just saw James Harden. He's playing the best defense of his career. He's ready to go defensively. They are not a bad defensive team. You must play sound offensive ball and run sound sets against them, even though they're tiny. You're going to get a lot of offensive rebounds, putbacks. That's going to be all series long. That's going to be very easy for us. But what we can't do is give them extra possessions by turning the ball over. We must be sound in our approach. You're not going to outshoot them. And to a point, because they're playing small ball, you're probably not going to outrun them with bigger lineups. It would be best to try to slow the game down. But you keep in mind that James Harden is also going to try to slow the game down by getting to the line every single play he gets a chance to. Keep your cool. Technicals are going to be a big deal in this series because anybody who plays against James Harden knows that you're not going to have any fun doing it. They're going to call calls for him that you are not going to agree with. Have that in mind early. Just expect it. That's just the best advice I can give anybody that's going to be going up against the Rockets on any level. Prepare to be frustrated. Prepare to be mad. Be ready for bad calls because they are undoubtedly coming. It's James Harden. The calls are coming. Yeah, I think that's it, man. I always get long-winded when I do this kind of stuff. I feel like there may be a point or two that I'm forgetting. But at the end of the day, this is going to be what I consider a very, very, very quick and painless out for the Lakers. We're going to get these Houston Rockets up out of here. 5 games, maybe even 4. Just The game of basketball is a game of matchups, and this is one of the more lopsided matchup situations you'll ever see. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.